All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of SoulCast, where we're trying to bring you the biggest names in the tournament scene right now, especially with Evo coming right around the corner. So we just had CEO this past weekend, and shout out to RTD who took that. Congrats to him. I know. Damn it! Why can't I? Mick took the power up. So we have. I know he's Tennessee, but we have a couple of ATL guys now with some major wins. Um, so aside from that, I think that was the last Evo major. So we have Evo is the next big event, but we want to make sure that we get as many of those winners on before Evo hits. So kind of this episode is a little bit of retroactive, just because of schedules and everything. It's been kind of crazy and so many tournaments going on. But this episode we're going to talk a little bit again about seasons beatings. Although this time we have the winner of seasons beatings. So without further ado, allow me to introduce RyuJin. What's going on, dude?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, man?
So, like with all my guests, we're going to start off pretty basic. For those who don't know, who you are, where you come from, what your history is. Kind of give us a little bit of a background. Like, what games did you start with? Was it always Caliber? Is Caliber 5 like your favorite, or was it your main? Kind of just give us a history of where you come from.
Well, as some people know, I'm from Michigan. As far as fighting games go, I would have to say my first competitive fighting game actually was Dead or Alive Ultimate. No, not sorry, yeah, Dead or Alive Ultimate. And I played that competitively first. Of course, I played all other fighting games, Tekken, Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter. I tried all those games out, but Dead or Alive was the first one that I actually tried to take seriously. Back in the original Xbox days. Yeah, I believe it was the original Xbox days. My first Soul Calibur though I played was Calibur 1, in which just me and a few guys that I knew, we played in our buddy's uncle's basement for like hours and hours and hours, and which is why I play Killick to this day. He was the character that I actually started as.
Well, not necessarily Killick, but the new version of him, so to speak. Because what they brought him back, but now he's an Edge Master. So stupid, but because we need three Edge Masters in the new game. But
Yeah, that was kind of unnecessary. I mean, honestly, they could have just programmed in Edge Master, and then when you select them, all female, all male style, or all the above. You could have simply done something like that. But whatever the reasons were.
they had to fill in that space. Well, that's funny that you mentioned DOA because I know that they're coming out with a new one here pretty soon, and pretty much the the entirety, I think, of the fighting game community looks at DOA like a bastard redheaded stepchild that just like, oh my god, people play you. It's that's funny. But okay, so you've been playing Caliber for a while, and it sounds like your Jiba love comes from Killick from back in the day. So I guess let's kind of jump right into seasons beatings. So you've been using, as far as I know, you've been using Jiba for pretty much exclusively since Caliber 5 came out. So including seasons beatings up to now, like how do you feel like he's working for you? Do you think it's good, or how do you think that progression has manifested?
Honestly, I have a lot of complaints, a lot of complaints. As far as how he's working for me, it's more so of now I need to learn how to work for him due to a lot of the nerfs that were done. I mean, not only to him, but just the backstep nerf, which I'm sure you've heard,
Mm.
a lot of people complain
Oh
about.
yeah, absolutely.
Uh, um, my progression has actually stopped. I haven't really been practicing seriously, honestly, for about maybe 2.5 months, which is a bad thing. Which is a bad thing. But I'm picking up practicing again. A big issue that I had been having is rushing down and playing defensively, or at least when to shift between the two.
Mhm.
I've gotten to the point where I'm just afraid to get hit. You know what I mean? Due to backsteps, I don't feel that I have very many tools. My guard damage game has been shot to all hell. Well, you have Viola, who can do a 6-6-A, which is a high claw swipe and break your guard. I swing my staff down on you with, the entire force of my body, and I get no guard damage, which is a nice little complaint. But as far as Hashiba working for me right now, I'm honestly falling out of love with the guy personally. But he is well. Wing Zero kind of re-inspired me as CEO. I watched some of his matches today, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna stick with the guy. I'm gonna have to stick with him.
Hey, sometimes that's what it takes is just seeing somebody have that clutch day, and they're just doing really good, and then you feel re-inspired, as it were. So okay, so you mentioned that you've kind of been out of it, for a couple months or so. I know that you've gone to at least one event since season's beatings, UFGT. Have you managed to make it out to anything else, or was that the only one?
That was the only major event. I did go to, I guess, a monthly at Ohio Council Combat,
Mm.
and that was before UFGT. I'm not sure exactly on the date, but I went to that one, which I took second in. I lost to another local here, Double Chip, who's an extremely awesome player, by the way. But that's been about it. Just that UFGT experience, which was it was an awesome tournament. Awesome tournament. I got on, but it was an awesome tournament.
Well, yeah, I know, and I know a lot of people were happy to see LP finally get his win. So with that, the whole season's beatings thing. Now, I mean, you have Evo points. Since you've only gone to UFGT, and it kind of sounds like maybe you're falling out of it a little bit for whatever reason. Life can always get a hold of you. But are you going to be able to make it out then to Evo and use those Evo points, or are you going to be like Heaton and stay home?
Well, see, that's the funny thing. To be honest with you, I didn't plan on going to Evo. My plans were to actually go to the recent MLG, but due to some financial issues, I didn't end up going, which was a good thing because, like I said, I haven't been in practice I haven't been practicing anyway. But as it stands now, I was actually able to get a plane ticket for under $400. So it is confirmed that I'll be going to Evo tomorrow. I'll buy my tournament pass, and I will be at Evo.
Nice, excellent. Well, there's not going to be, I mean, there's going to be a lot of money on the line at Evo, absolutely, but not nearly as much as MLG. So, but I guess more people will watch you. Let's put it that way. If you're at Evo, so kind of weird how that works. Or it's a bigger stage, but the rewards aren't as big. It's odd. But I think if you're gonna make one event, most people would choose Evo over MLG. So I'm glad to actually see you using the Evo points that you won. Um, Real quick before we move on from seasons beatings, because I actually have some more questions about Evo. I just wanted quick because we had some like issues in the past, and this always pops up with certain players where some people are like, oh man, I can't believe they're winning, blah blah blah. Do you think the season's beatings? Do you think that win vindicated you? Do you think like that proved, okay, I deserve to be here? All this talk or whatever about me not being good enough, even though, and granted, you haven't practiced for a couple months, but despite that, prior to that, when you actually were practicing, did you feel vindicated when you won that tournament?
Well, to be honest, a lot of people tell me that I should be. I don't think so for the simple, and I'll tell you why. This is why. While I did win it, I was still I was kind of within a character crisis trying to decide on if I should change from Shiva or if I should change my play style or, trying to figure out, basically get a whole new feel for the game. So, I mean, I didn't feel that my play style was complete, which is why if you watched any of the matches, I was doing a lot of turtling, more so than I usually do. And it's really hard to say. Honestly, with Evo, trust me, you're going to see a much better performance out of me. I'm going to go in there hard. But right then and there, I didn't feel so hype about winning season 2.
It's funny that you mentioned that play style difference, and how you played a lot more defensively during that tournament, because Slooch, when he was on, he actually mentioned that. He's like, I was really surprised when I finally played RyuJin in the tournament, because we had played the night before, but he was playing entirely different during the tournament. And he was like, I just couldn't adapt to the way that he was playing. So it's kind of ironic that you mentioned that, because Sluch said the exact same thing about that. But I'm glad to hear that at least you're gonna go in fresh and sharp during Evo. So that's a good segue into Evo then. So it sounds like you're going to start practicing again. You mentioned the Wing Zero thing about you seeing him at CEO or watching his matches. So what sorts of things are you like looking forward to or looking at as you go to Evo? Like, are there any? You can mention names if you want to, like any specific people who you think might give you a really hard time, or specific characters or anything like that. But like, what are your expectations going into Evo?
Well, my expectations are to win. That's what I expect to do. But besides that, I just want to perform very well. That's what I want. I want to put on a great show for everybody. As far as characters, well, there's the usual Viola, and the Nightmare, and Nightmare. Those two characters are the ones that I'm really worried about. But the two more characters that I do feel I should be worried about, but unfortunately I don't really see too many people taking advantage of all their tools, are Alpha Patroclus and Cervantes. Those are the only characters that I'm really worried about. But as far as people go, of course, there's, there's a long list of them. I mean, Lost Providence, Kayane, which I'm assuming she's going to be there, and, the list goes on.
Yeah, you mentioned Alpha. Alpha P, Woes, he just took ECT, and we're going to try to get him on the podcast as well at some point. But he's an Alpha player. A lot of people were saying that they were, really, really impressed at how his Alpha was playing at ECT. And then, there's not a lot of Servi players out there. I know Hates plays Servi, but I would imagine he's going to Evo, and he's a pretty good Servi. I know he practices with Omega a lot. But other than him, I can't think of any Servi players, at least not any that are going to be there, because everybody's kind of doing the Nightmare thing, or there's still a lot of Natsu players out there. Leisha, those characters are pretty much going to be all over the place. But who knows? Maybe you'll run into Woes, and that would be rough. I would say if you're worried about him. Are there any of these players? Because you specifically mentioned Alpha and Servi. Are there any like big name players or anything that you practice with on occasion, whether online or offline, who play those characters that kind of can give you an edge going in?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. Currently, no, there are none that I play with. But actually, you know what? I have played with, now that you mention it, I have played with Woes quite a few times online. He wasn't using Alpha Patroclus at the time because I believe his pad or his stick, I believe he played pad. He was having issues with a pad that he had. So, obviously he was playing with other characters simply because he couldn't perform the way he needed to with Alpha Patroclus, which kind of surprised me that you said he went to ECT and took that, because I didn't realize that he was that he went to any tournaments as of lately and played with Alpha Patroclus. But I knew he was a really good player though with him.
Yeah, he won that. So he's got, as far as I know, he's got the same Evo points you do. So although I think the way that they're seeding Evo, because of those points, you probably wouldn't see him until later in the tournament. But he's definitely going to be there. As far as I should say, as far as I know, he's going to be there. From my recollection, the only person who's won an Evo qualifier who will not be going is Heaton. I think he's the only one. So yeah, everybody else is going. So with so we know your expectations with Evo then, and we know what you're kind of looking for going in. So to kind of segue into the next topic, because a lot of people have wanted me to talk about this, and I've been trying my hardest the last few episodes. People want to know what your training regimen looks like and what sorts of things you're doing to get ready. So with previous guests, actually we've had a couple of online heroes who have won some Evo majors, and their main practice tool is online. One was Heaton actually, and then Partisan was another one. But there's you mentioned getting sharp. We've talked about how you haven't played for a couple months and you're just starting to get back in the training regimen. So what kinds of things are you doing to kind of get that edge back and, maybe even take a couple steps forward to make sure that you're prepared for Evo?
I'm actually, well, I'm actually going to be playing online a bit, and paying more attention to the matches that I do play, and analyzing my mistakes, as well as paying more attention to the tools that other characters have and ways around them. Because a big thing that I thought was gonna kind of control the flow of the match was just guarding. I figured that was gonna be a big deal, like a while back when the game was released. In which while it is important, a lot of people aren't exploiting it too much. And I think by trying to practice too hard on just guarding, I'm kind of losing focus on other things that are important. So I'm going to kind of step back a little bit from just guarding. But I will be playing online. Of course, there's that good old practice mode and just the normal move recognition sort of deals, breaking throws in the correct situations, the normal deal, but nothing too special. I'm gonna get together with my locals more because our scene is actually starting to I would say blow up. More local players are picking up the game, and more guys are showing up to our gatherings. So I have a lot more competition, and I'm gonna actually for the next, what do we have, like 3 weeks before Evo?
I
Four?
believe so, because it's the weekends after July 4th, I believe. So, because the 4th is on a Wednesday. Let me see. So, 1, 2, so just a little bit under 3 weeks. So, it's 2 weeks from, or 3 weeks from this past weekend that we just had. So, yeah, it's getting pretty close.
Okay, yeah. So then, with that being said, for the next 3 or 4 weeks or however long it is, I'm gonna be doing a lot of driving because I'm gonna need to meet with quite a few players. There's actually, I'll probably even try and go to Ohio and play with Perfect Legend. He hasn't competed in any Soul Calibur tournament, from what I understand, but he's still a solid player in the game. You know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, he's one of those
So,
players who's really good at a lot of games. It's really weird
mhm.
because I know he was he won Evo last year for Mortal Kombat, and then I know he plays Tekken. I've seen him play Tekken as well. I can only imagine he probably plays Street Fighter, just because everybody plays that game for some weird reason. But
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely some good competition there. And that's always a good thing to hear when local scenes blow up, because at least I know where I am, it's kind of died. So in order for me to get any practice, I have to turn myself into an online hero. But it's funny. There's actually a couple questions involved in the things that you just said that I can think of, and one has to do with the just guarding. Just kind of your opinion on the thing. Why do you think most people haven't tuned into the just guarding thing and tried to incorporate it more into the game? Do you think maybe it has something to do with online and the fact that like the timing is different for that sort of stuff?
Honestly, I want to say no. I think it's tournament nerves, and the people don't want to run the risk. That's honestly what I think it is. It's just because once a player is really feeling themselves, you'll start to notice that they're gonna start doing it more and more. I mean, even in the tournaments that I've been in, I sat there and I practiced just guarding. God knows how long, and I you can watch like past tournament videos of myself, and I will go through the entire tournament and not just guard a single thing. You know, it's
So
nerves, I
do
guess.
you think that's something that'll change in the future as people start to get more comfortable? Well, and especially with Evo, this is arguably the game's only been out for a couple months, 3, 4, something like that, and Evo is going to be the biggest thing for this game. Do you think it's mostly that like people don't want to like start getting into this habit of doing something and then it turns out to screw them over once they actually get onto the big stage?
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, honestly, as far as Evo goes, you'll probably see some players do it more, but obviously it won't be exploited to its full potential as of right now. with the game being out for its set amount of time, there's a lot of technology that players need to learn, or I'm sorry, technology is the wrong word, but there's a
No, no,
lot
no, no.
of
That's the right word.
well, a lot of players need to learn what exactly they get off of what situations and or how to take advantage of the situation that they get nothing off of, but just the advantage. And, sometimes you'll go for a just guard and you're like, oh, wow, I just guarded that, and it's like it's a 2A or something and, you don't get anything off of it per se, but you just have to recognize the situation and take advantage of it. But uh, it's the risk, man. Nobody wants to do it.
So let me ask you to pontificate a little bit. What do you think is going to happen after Evo? Do you think that's going to become more integrated into everybody's game and be a bigger thing, or what do you think is going to happen after Evo?
Well, that's actually kind of a complicated question because I don't want to sound negative, and I love Soul Calibur 5 to death, and I really hope I hope it stays, in the esports scene and whatnot. If it does, then yes, I believe people will start to do it more. I mean, I've seen an increase of it, you know, just it's not a lot of it being done, not even by some of the top players. But I do believe that as time goes on, there will be a lot more death guarding to the point where players are just completely afraid to use certain moves or strings whatsoever. You won't see things being used like they used to. For an example, Afteroff's 2-2 or 8-8A, or B, I'm sorry. That I believe in the future that's not going to be a problem for anybody. I mean, myself personally, I love when Afteroff uses it. It's like, I don't know, 20, 30 something frames,
Mm,
and it's, noticeable, and you just guard it and launch them for it or stun them or whatever your character's, best asset is.
mm.
So,
That's very interesting. I kind of I think that the same thing's going to happen. I mean, you can already start to see that happening with just guarding. Like, there's certain characters that will literally eat you up if you can't just guard their strings. Um, Not Omega, but regular Pyrrha. She's a good example. Well, I guess Omega too, but regular Pyrrha is a really good example because 6-6B Brave Edge. That
mm,
if you can't just guard that move, you're fucked. I mean, you're not going to beat that character because she'll just spam it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I mean, that's a really good example. And you mentioned the Astroth thing. You're starting to see that already, like where people are reacting to the first hit or just a one-hit move like Astros 2-2B. I know if you watch Mateo play, who got second at UFGT, he's really good at setting people up for just guards and then just punishing them hardcore. He plays Mitsu, which is a nightmare as it is. So that can be really rough. So that's really interesting that you think so. I have to ask the question though, because you kind of alluded to it a little bit. Do you feel like, is there a worry there that Soul Calibur might die after Evo?
for myself, yes. I mean, and maybe it's just due to my own experiences with our local scene. We haven't had a caliber tournament in Michigan in, I want to say, maybe 2 to 3 months, which is also, maybe a reason why I haven't really been practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's showing up for it. You have season beatings that only had, I think, 16 people, but I was informed about, the tournament in, I believe in Soul Calibur 4, which I was there for, I believe, where it was ran really, really poorly. So I kind of understand that. But you have Street Fighter where you get like 60 to 100 plus players, and then Soul Calibur gets 40, and it keeps dropping in attendance. It worries me. I mean, I like I said, I love the game and I want it to strive and live on for 4 or 5 years or until the next installment. But I'm a little worried personally.
Gotcha. So what aside from just the observations of a little bit tournament attendance issues. Is there anything else that makes you think, and aside from your local scene, of course, is there anything else that like makes you think that, or any other sorts of pieces of information that lead you to that worry? Like, I know the only game that I can think of that's coming out here soon that might cut into its market a little bit would be Tekken Tag 2, but that's not going to happen until September. So, are there any like other little pieces of information that are making you think that or worry about that?
Well, no, just kind of what you mentioned. Tekken Tag 2 coming out, and Virtual Fighter is out now, which that's
Ah,
never
yes.
really had a big tournament scene, from what I understand.
No, no.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
always been a Japanese thing. Like in Japan, it's huge, but it's not really big here. So,
And then there's what else is coming out? Street Fighter X Tekken's already been released. We have Dead or Alive coming out, which that may or may not, blow up. Most likely, well, I'm not even gonna talk about that, but
yeah, I'm
hopefully, I'm
guessing a
hoping
lot
that
of people will play that game, just not in the competitive community. Because
well, I mean, honestly, it has there's a few mechanics that are being added to the game that may actually make it a competitive worthy game, I should say. So
interesting.
that's just little information that I have that I'm gonna keep under my hat, but
Gotcha. So, okay, well, we'll kind of put the caliber stuff to the side then, and or at least in the general sense. There was something I wanted to ask, kind of going back to your training regimen a little bit. You mentioned how you like to analyze what you're doing in the matches that you're playing and stuff. I presume like most people, you just kind of keep a log in your head and then go over it later. But are there any like do you record your matches or anything like that, or do you do anything special, or is it all just observations? Like, okay, I see that I'm doing this. I need to work on that. I mean, do you take notes maybe or anything like that?
actually, I do take notes. I have a notebook, and I do take notes. As far as recording my matches go, I record the ones that I'm playing online, and for anybody that I do play online, I'm not recording matches to say, "Oh my God, this is how I destroyed this," player. My goal is honestly is to deal with the character, because the player can't do anything outside of what the character is capable of. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You're not gonna see, Zeba shoot out a freaking, fireball. It's not gonna happen. So my main goal, regardless of whoever I'm fighting, whether it be a good player or a bad player, if I see anything notable that I may have had a hard time dealing with, you know, the goal is to record it and to go back in the lab and look at some frame data, possible spacing, options, and deal with it there.
So that actually leads me to another really interesting question that I don't think I've asked on the podcast yet. But most players would say that character knowledge and game knowledge is going to be crucial to winning. But from the sounds of it, I think that you kind of fall on that end rather than player skill. Like it has more to do with how much do you know about the matchup and the character rather than the decisions that your opponent is making. And I think that most players are like, well, it doesn't matter how much knowledge I have about that character if my opponent's tuned in. I have to be able to recognize their patterns and et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people focus more on the player, and playing the player, not the character. But it sounds like you're the opposite. Is first of all, is that true? Am I getting that right? Or
Yeah, you are getting it right. I mean, as far as the two that you're discussing, I guess one is more on the offensive end, while the other is more on the defensive end. I'm thinking more in a defensive aspect, as far as if I can deal with this character's setup, I can figure out a way to either get around it or punish them for it. Whereas people needing to tune, they say that as long as if the player's tuned in, that there's nothing that they can do. Whereas I guess that deals with more so of being repetitive and not having a way to change your game style, your game play.
Mhm.
But I believe that it's more dealing with the character than the player. But that's my personal, opinion.
Nice. That's really interesting. Because yeah, not to for those listening, not to undermine either one of them, because obviously, I mean, if you talk to anybody who knows anything about not just fighting games, but any competitive game, it's a good balance of both. You have to know a lot about the game as well as be able to play against your opponent and recognize their patterns and their abilities and what they can do and what they can't do. But most people they pick. They don't say, oh, it's 50-50. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I think you should be playing the player as opposed to the character. And then you have the other side of the fence that like you said, you should know the character, and if you know the character well enough, there's nothing. You already know the player's limits because they're limited by the character that they chose. So that's really interesting. That's an argument that I think I'll probably end up going back to for other interviews and podcasts, because it's a very, very interesting question. I don't think you can really prove either one, but it's interesting to see like what different players think about that. Okay, so we have. Go ahead.
Well, do you mind if I want to talk about that again?
Oh,
but,
sure. Yeah,
but basically, the thing is, though, is it is you do need a good balance of the two. Players' knowledge or player knowledge and character knowledge. But the big thing is that outside of a patch, the character can't change. The player can adapt and they can change their play style. But again, going back to the whole fireball, theory that I put out there, if one character has a set tools and you shut down those tools, while they can change their play style to, kind of try and counteract that, if you shut down all their best tools while you're still able to use yours, their damage options are going to be really limited. They're not going to be able to capitalize on a lot of situations, nor get good damage. So, I mean, that's the reason why I think it's more, character knowledge over player. Not saying that, like you said, not saying that anyone who believes it's the other, I'm not knocking them. That's just my own personal opinion.
Yeah, no. I definitely can't emphasize that enough. There's definitely merit to both sides of the argument. I thought when you opened that door, I thought that was very interesting. I was like, we never really talked about that, and how that affects, because there are some people that they rely more on their ability to adapt to their player, or to the player that they're going up against, their opponents, as opposed to knowing a lot about the game. Justin Wong, for instance, he's a really good example, because granted, he knows a lot about a lot of games, but he plays everything. I mean, that's the only way you can describe it, is that he plays everything, and he enters every tournament every time he goes to an event. But there's no way that he can know everything or as much as a lot of players out there. So he essentially just relies on his basics, on his fundamentals, and he just watches the player, watches what they do, and then tries to beat them that way. And, it doesn't always work. He doesn't. I've never heard of him winning, a big Tekken tournament, for instance. So that's a little counter argument to the playing against the opponent. But it's interesting. It's just an interesting topic, because some people rely on matching their opponent, being able to adapt, while others they're not all that concerned about it. They're like, I don't really care who I play, because I feel comfortable knowing that that I know more about their character than they do. So,
well, as far as that goes, I do honestly. I like that. I like what you said. It as far as dealing with the players. It honestly, it is a big advantage when you have as much experience as, say, Justin Wong, or whoever the case may be that played multiple games, because that definitely gives you an edge. I mean, even if you're going against, say, somebody that's, let's say they're God, like with Viola, and you're just like, well, I see what's going on. But this player, seems to, attack a lot. Your basic skill that you brought from other fighting games will say, okay, well, let me space them out and make them whiff a lot. This is on a basic level, obviously, saying that the other player that was dominating, can't adapt.
mm-hmm.
But it definitely it can give you an advantage, especially for players that have a lot of experience tournament wise and playing multiple games and strategizing. It does give an advantage.
All right. Well, that's I think that's actually a good way to to end that topic. For the most part, I think we covered everything that I was going to ask, because we talked about Caliber, we talked about both online and offline. We talked about your training regimen. We did the whole season's beatings thing. I think that's all of my questions for now. So with that, I do like to kind of end the podcast. We haven't had a lot of assault with you yet, which is good because that makes this little last segment very important. Because it's pretty much I'm going to give you a soapbox and I'm going to let you rant on whatever you want. So I want to know what makes RyuJin mad, like what makes you really angry. Even if you're not an angry person, I want to know what just sets you off. And you get booked and sent to anger management. Like what things are making you really mad. And it doesn't have to be video game related. It can be anything you want it to be. But I want a little rant from you. So I'm just going to put it at that and just throw it at you. Give us something. Give us some salt.
Some salt. Wow, man, that's difficult. I mean, there's not many things that make me salty. Well, you know what? Okay, the thing that makes me salty, I guess, video game related. Running into somebody that, you don't know. You're playing them in a casual environment, and they take rounds or they may win, regardless of, if they may have, played lower than you in a tournament or not. And then they kind of get this big head and, they're aggressive with what they say to you, or maybe they, talk behind your back about you dirty, things like that, that sort of stuff makes me a little salty, makes me angry.
Newbie trash talk.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That's funny. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that because there's a guy in the thread for the Heaton podcast who I can't even remember what exactly he said. He said something about how Northwest Majors had like the weakest lineup of players or something like that he's ever seen. And it's just this random troll, like, and everybody's just like feeding into it. And I was like, really? Like, come on. Like, nobody knows who this guy is, and he's just talking random shit. Like, just let it go. Let it go. No, he's just somebody trying to troll people. No big deal.
Those guys make for really good reads, They make for a good lunch break,
That's really true. Because that's how I took it. I was like, I'm not gonna take this guy seriously. I have no idea who he is. So along that line, though, man, I just had another question. Oh yeah, UFGT. So I know that you were playing casuals and stuff, and I think I mentioned this either last podcast or the one with Lost Providence. But were you happen to standing around there when I was playing? I actually think he was a friend of yours. I think he was just playing like random people just to get warmed up. I think he was playing like Pyrrha or something. And like some random Marvel player came up and started talking shit. Were you around there?
Yeah, I was around there.
I thought that was so hilarious. I was like, are you serious? Like, is this happening right now? Like, I've never seen anybody just so blatantly disregard all codes of conduct and just walk up on a game they don't even play and start talking mad shit. I was just blown away. It was hilarious. But what was that a friend of yours, by the way?
Yeah, okay. that was Mr. All Caps, core member from Detroit, Michigan. Shout out to him.
Oh yeah, he wasn't having any of it. He was like, nope.
Oh no, not at all. See, that's the thing, and a lot of people, basically, for the most part, I would have to say most gamers are laid back. And while I don't promote violence, in the situation of something like that happening, I can't say that I would, feel bad for the guy who got his head smashed in for doing the random talking, particularly when, you're offered an opportunity to prove that this player is trash, with your own skills, which, Mr. All Caps gave him that opportunity to by challenging him to a money match.
Yeah, he gave him like 30 opportunities. He was like, okay, what game do you play? Okay, I'll play that game. Whatever.
Which he honestly would have done. He seriously would have done. He plays many games and is very good at all of them.
I just thought it was just so random. Like, this is like, first of all, I don't even know who this guy was. Like, he obviously was not a big name or anything like that. He's just a random dude that walks up, doesn't even play the game, It's like you'll see that on the online forums sometimes because you're
Right,
anonymous and nobody can really call you out because even if they do, you just laugh at them from your house, as you look
right.
at your TV screen. But like this guy, I was like, this guy is the biggest balls in the world. Otherwise, he's the dumbest guy in the world. I was like, I just didn't get it. I just didn't like it. I was so confused at what motivated this guy to come over and start talking mad shit. But
I would have to say that's the first time I've experienced that sort of situation in real life as well. I was just like, whoa. And I wonder, was he maybe a buddy of the guy that? No, was he a buddy of maybe somebody else that was around there?
I have no idea. I thought
Because
he
you didn't know.
no, I definitely didn't know him, and I thought I thought he did have like a buddy that was standing there with him. But I don't. But that guy didn't say anything. Yeah, I was just I have to admit that I that's the first time I've ever seen that as well. I've seen some really really tense situations. Um, I don't believe I've seen a fight because there's only been a few fights like at least like newsworthy fights in the competitive fighting game scene, but
Mm.
I've seen some really, really heated trash talk. I've seen things come close to blows, but nothing like that. Like there was always some tension there that like some rivalry that always started it or something. But this guy just comes out of nowhere. I was like, it's like random troll moment. It was really, really crazy. But oh well. I guess there's a first for everything, I suppose. Uh, okay, so that's a good way to end the podcast. I think some salt about random trolls and random newbies who don't even play the game and whatnot. So aside from that, that's pretty much all I have for the podcast. So I do like to give my guests the final word. Before I do that, again, a shout out to RTD for taking CEO this past
Oh,
weekend.
yes.
Uh,
Oh, yes.
we will reach out to him, see if we can get him on the podcast. I don't know if he's because I mentioned him and Mick in the same sentence earlier. Because Mick won Power Up, and the only reason that I really didn't get a hold of Mick because we did talk to him at Power Up, and we do know him. But he's not really one for words, so to speak. Like he's very soft spoken, doesn't really talk a whole lot. So I don't really think he'd have a lot to say. But RTD, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if he'd be interested, but we'll definitely get a hold of him. I think Woes is down for going on the podcast, so expect that. All you guys listening, he should be on there. And then other than CEO, that's it. I believe. I think that's the last qualifier for Evo. So the next thing on the docket is Evo. So after that, we will try to get whoever takes that. And hopefully maybe even get like top 3 or something because obviously that's going to be the event. See what all we can do. So aside from that, yeah, I mean tune in for Evo. Obviously, big things coming. We get a little break before then, but then the big event is upon us. So definitely don't miss out on that. So that's all for me. So RyuJin, if you have any shout outs or anything else you wanted to comment on before we call it a day, feel free.
All right. Let's see. First thing I would like to say, fuck Viola. Shout out to Law Providence. I mean, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy. I'm just, I'm really upset with Viola. But I did want to talk about. You had brought up Mateo Galvin and him setting up Just
Mhm.
Guards earlier, and I was just gonna say that that guy has incredible control of the match. And it's really great to watch him play as well as fight against him. I mean, a lot of times he'll set you in frame traps that he has A or B option that he can basically mess with you in, and continue his offense. And then if he decides that he wants to just guard, then he can, which is he's a monster. Honestly, I mean I love the guy too, and I do want to give some shout outs though. I do want to give some shout
Oh,
outs.
absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to send shout out to the entire Michigan crew. We got Corn down at the guide. Throw all caps. We got Alucard. We got Footwork. We got there's a lot of names to list, but shout out to everybody in Michigan. Thank for all the help and work. My fellow X Clan brethren, which So it's a group of us, Silent Legend and Dr. Dog, which I'm sure you've met Dr.
Oh
Dog.
yeah, absolutely. He's a long time Tekken guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. We do quite a bit of practicing together. Um, I'd also like to give shout out to Mick RTD, Wing Zero, Lost Providence, Hawkeye, all those guys out there, Kayane, Keeves. I mean, the list goes on and on. But shout out to you guys, KDZ. Thanks for all the help. Whether I took it or not. Those guys seem to be willing to give a word of advice while playing, which I'm definitely I'm open to hearing. You know what I mean? If you can't take criticism, then you're not really gonna improve. You know what I mean?
Get out.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's all I got. That's all I got.
All right. Well, excellent shout outs. Big list right there. But that's okay. We like that. We like spreading love around here. So, just a final word about Mateo. It's funny that you mentioned the match thing because he's one of the rarest kind of players where he is absolutely decisive. Like there's not a lot of people that you can say are like that, but he makes a decision and he goes with it, and he relies on his reactions and his instincts to back out if he needs to. So like, just guarding strings or whatever it is. But he makes decisions and there's no second guessing. He doesn't need to. He makes decision, goes with path A and just keeps going. But
exactly.
I know that I'm pretty sure that he's going to head out to Evo. So pretty much everybody on that list, for the most part, is going to be at Evo. So for any of you out there who who are starting to think about it, I'm not sure if I think they have closed registration, but it's one of those things where who cares? Go anyway. If you really want to see all these big name players and whatnot, even if you don't get a registration pass, that's okay. I mean, there's so many casual rooms and stuff that they have out there. It's not hard at all to get a hold of these guys. So with that, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I know it's been a little while in the works, but we finally got something worked out, and I'm glad we did. So with that, thank you everyone for listening. Once again, expect a couple more podcasts at least before we hit Evo, and then we got the big event. So thanks again for coming on, RyuJin, and thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time.
No problem. See everybody at Evo.